Hello everyone, this is Stefan Talp, and today we're going to talk about the biblical Hebrew literature, which involves the Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Psalms, and etc. Even though biblical literature is usually hard to interpret, I'll try my hardest to make it as simple as possible in this presentation. So let's start with some definitions. Tanakh is the Hebrew Bible. Christians call it the Old Testament and is actually the acronym for the first letters of its three sections: Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Torah covers the time from God's creation of earth to the death of Moses, which was probably the most important prophet in Judaism. It consists of 5 books, each described at different times, one of which we'll discuss in the next slide. Torah is often mistaken in Arabic as the whole Hebrew Bible. Nevi'im, which basically means prophets, is a historical narrative that is divided into 2 parts and starts immediately after the death of Moses. The first part is called the former prophets, which were Moses' successors, leading Israelis into the Promised Land, and ends at the release from the imprisonment of the last kings of Judah, which was one of ancient Israeli kingdoms. The second part talks about the life of their successors. Finally, Ketuvim is a collection of 11 books of biblical poems, some of which we'll actually discuss in this presentation. So the book of Genesis, one of Torah's 5 books, which is actually very interesting to read, talks about the 7 days of God creating the world that we live in today. So on the first day, God separated light and darkness, creating day and night. The second day, he separated, quoting, waters from waters, creating the sky. On the third day, God created land, seas, trees, and plants. On the fourth day, he created the sun, the moon, and the stars, and everything that surrounds Earth. On the fifth day, he created creatures that would live in the sea and fly over it. On the sixth day, he created land animals, and finally, in the very end, us, humans, in his own image. And on the seventh day, God had finally rested, making the seventh day holy. Now to our favorite biblical poetry. The Song of the Sea, which is also called the Song of Moses, is one of the most famous songs describing one of the most important events in Jewish history. I will leave the poem here in case Dr. Marcus will need to make some notations. Let's discuss its history and meaning in the next slide. So the history of the poem is this. Jews were kept as slaves by the Egyptians for about 400 years, but there are sources that say it's more than that. And one day, Abraham was told by God that the time of Egyptian oppression was over and Jews need to be freed. When Moses went to the Pharaoh to follow God's will, the Pharaoh refused to let the Jews go, which led to the famous 10 plagues of Egypt. When the Jews were finally freed and were led by Moses to Canaan, after some time the Pharaoh decided to chase the Jews. But when Moses was able to divide the Red Sea, making it possible for the Jews to get to the other side, the Egyptian army wasn't as lucky and it was destroyed by the sea when all the Jews went to the other side. So the Song of the Sea is a description of the power of God as Israel's defender, celebration of the destruction of Egyptian army during the crossing, and the anticipation of future conquest of Canaan. This slide again is for Dr. Marcus in case of any notations. The Lord is my shepherd serves as the analogy that a God to a human is like a shepherd to a sheep, and has several deeper meanings. Firstly, it describes a close relationship and care for humans from God's side, quoting, "A shepherd cares not only for his sheep as a whole, but also for every single one," and indirectly suggests that God knows us well individually. Second is that God protects and forgives us eternally, quoting from the last lines of the poem. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So that was it.